Okay, let's see. Why is that showing a past stream? That's not what it's supposed to show. What is going on now? This is not what it should be showing. Hold on. It's showing when I was recording before. Lord, are we having another day? Hold on, let me make sure this catches up. Okay, I think we are now showing what was supposed to. YouTube, that one was on YouTube. That wasn't my internet. That was a, let's see, do we have audio? Yeah, I think there's audio. Let me know if you guys can't hear me. That time it was like a weird hiccup of what we had going on earlier while I was testing to see if I could get this working. So thank you guys for giving me another chance here tonight. Yeah, it looks like what happened earlier, if you tried joining and things didn't go well, the Wi-Fi in my house is not working. If I plug directly in, they're fine, but everything that's connected to Wi-Fi is constantly dropping. And so we're going to have to figure that out. But luckily my husband was able to find a cable so I could plug directly into the wall, what I couldn't find earlier. So, and realistically, that's what I will just leave moving forward because I don't need to be on Wi-Fi because wall. So anyway, here we go. What we are doing tonight, if you want the reference photo that I am very loosely basing this off of, it is over on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Lachri. That should be, if I did it right, God, it's been one of those days, I probably didn't. It should be a public post or a free post so you guys can grab that if it's necessary to you, or just follow along with what I'm doing here is probably easier, but it is there if you want it. Let me make sure. Nope, don't need that. So yeah, what we're doing today, very, very loose. I'm going to show you how to keep to where your brush strokes are loose. You're letting them show, and that is something that a lot of us who paint in realism sometimes can have trouble with. And I'm not saying you should change the way you paint. I just want to show you another way that you can paint, which is really fun. You need to start over to C. Huh? I need to start over to C. To see what? Did I do something wrong again? I hope not. So what I've done, now I started the background earlier on the first live stream, but because that didn't work, I just put a coat of gesso over it. That's why I've got a coat of blue here. Ignore the bluish tint. It makes no difference to once we get started what's going to happen. Let's see. Sergio wants to know how my day was. Anything interesting happened? I gorged myself on some cookies because that's a healthy way to deal with your problems. That was about it. That was my day. And now we're here. So my husband luckily is good with tech support, and he came in and helped me figure out what the problem was, and that it wasn't it wasn't just the internet itself, it was the Wi-Fi. But anyway, moving on. So that was my whole day dealing with that. Hi, Gail. So what we're going to be doing is keeping a very loose brush stroke. The first thing we're going to do is sketch out, and you don't have to do this. You can sketch yours with paint if you want. I'm going to sketch mine with pencil. I recommend a water-soluble graphite pencil if you are going to use graphite straight onto a canvas. Because if you use a regular pencil, like unfortunately I have here, because between now and earlier today, I lost my water-soluble graphite. It's over here somewhere. I don't know where that place is though, so I'm just going to use this so you guys can follow along. But I do recommend, if you've got a water-soluble graphite, that is definitely the way to go when working on a canvas if you're going to draw directly onto the white of the canvas, because that way when you add water, when you're painting, those graphite lines just get worked out. If you don't, if your paint is translucent, which the paints I use really are, you're really going to see a lot of those graphite lines, and I don't think that looks nice. So water-soluble graphite is a much better option than what I'm going to do, but that's what I got for now. So we're going to separate our landscape into three main sections. We've got the bottom section here, and then we've got where the next part of the land is going to go about here. Now, this isn't technically a third. A third would be up further, but trees, we've got to leave room for when we put our trees in. So I'm not going to go up that far, and we're coming up on this side a lot higher anyway. So we're going to just kind of make these little lines where you want each zone to be. Now, when we get to the road, this is really important, and I've got mine sketched in. I'm going to make mine a little darker as we go so you can see what I'm talking about. But go, for now, just make your line here, and we're going to come up. We've got a nice hill that's going to come up this way. And this is almost the halfway point. It's just above halfway here because, again, we're leaving room for the trees to keep our work in thirds. Why does that matter? It just makes it look nice if you can keep things broken up into general thirds. Now, when you paint your road or draw your road in, this I want to go ahead and sketch out for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about, because it's easier to show you what not to do and have that make sense. So we've got our land here. We've got our other land here. We're going to put a road. What we do not want for that road is this. This is not a road. That is a triangle of flatness. That you lose any sense of perspective in this if you've got this triangle. So let's make that a little darker so you can see what I mean. Not a road. Don't draw your road like this. You're not what are they? The drones. You're not looking down on a road. That is not how we draw them. What we want to do is come out. I'm going to put a mark at the edge of the canvas where I want it here and here. And I'm going to round that off and curve out. And then I'm going to curve back in this way. I'm going to make mine a little more curvy than what the road on the reference photo is. And then it just disappears out into the distance where the trees will be. But see how it curves? Again, look at the difference here. Let's go a little bit darker on that so you can get an idea of what I mean. That curve off out into the distance versus flat horribleness of don't do this. So that is something you really want to watch when you're drawing your little roads or pathways in a forest or anything like that. We want to make sure we keep that perspective. So I'm going to pull him out a little bit more. We'll pull this one out, curves out a little bit. Now, nothing here has to be drawn perfectly. It's not a big deal because you're going to be painting over this. You can adjust it later. It's a landscape. We're not talking about an animal where if the eye is like in the wrong place, you completely make him look deformed. Not really an issue here. So I'm not super worried about that, but I do want to make sure you guys are getting that perspective here because that's going to make a huge deal in what your final painting looks like. Now, this just kind of is this mass that comes up here. I'm going to put flowers in mine, which is not on the reference photo, or very little anyway. We've got a hill that is going to go there. So I'm just kind of sketching in the main land masses where the trees go. We've got this line that kind of comes here, and then I'm going to have another mass of trees here. So that just gives me a general about where stuff is going to go. This style, you don't have to pre-draw this out. If you just want to start painting, you can do that. This is so loose. We'll be using that word a lot tonight. Am I using a graph wood pencil? Yes, it is. And they're not my favorites. I think that they're overpriced for the quality. I mean, they're okay, but my favorite two graphite pencils are Derwent Graphics and Faber-Castell 9000 series. Those are hands down my favorite. The thing that makes the graph wood a little bit better to me, I like that they've coded the whole like you can see this is going to be a lighter one. So I can look at my pencils and go, okay, these are going to be lighter. That's probably going to be one of my H pencils. I can easily find my 2H or my 4H. Whereas with Derwent, with Faber-Castell, everything's the exact same color and you have to look at the tiny little writing to see which lead it is. That's the one thing that I think the graph wood really has above everybody else. But as far as performance goes, I think that they're a bit on the pricey side for the quality. Like I didn't like them better. They're good. They're not bad by any means. I mean, if you've got them, obviously you know they're good pencils, but it seemed a little overpriced to me for a graphite pencil. Since we're not dealing with light fast issues, it's like, I don't know. They're not, I don't see myself buying them again. We'll say that, but I don't think they're bad either. I just have preferences. Let's see. Sergio said, didn't you mention at one point Mr. Matt actually works in tech support? Yeah, he does. That's one of the things he does. It's not technically what he's supposed to do for his job, but it's what he ends up doing. Especially the last couple of weeks with it, trying to get everyone learning to work from home. So yes. I am losing my bright complexion that I had earlier. Yeah, as the sun goes down and I get washed out by lights, that'll be an issue. I've got to check my color as I work because I'm going to have to adjust this again from what I had earlier. Like my hand looks all yellow, which may affect what that comes out looking like. We'll test it later after I get a little further along. Okay, so if you were here earlier, you heard all of this, and I apologize for repeating, but I do think it's important for people to know who may not have been here earlier. So what we're going to do, we're just going to be using little tackle and bristle filberts. And these are rounded. You've got that rounded tip. And this is what we're going to be using for painting. Actually, there's a better one. Where's the one I used earlier? Here's the one I'll use for a lot of this. But they're these tackle and bristles with the filberts, the rounded tip. I don't want the flat ones because if I do a flat brush, what happens is each of my start and stop points is very harsh. You get a straight line. Now, that can give a cool look. That you can do that if you're going to be consistent and just stay with flat so everything has that straight line. But I feel like I lose a lot of control with it. Not a huge fan myself, so I like the more rounded brush stroke start and stop point for this style. So that's what I'm going to be going with here. Will I still be at Aquashella in Dallas? I noticed it was rescheduled. Chicago, I'm not going to do Chicago. I haven't talked to them about that. I need to make sure they know that. I don't want to travel, and especially right now with everything going on. And no, I'm not going to do Chicago, or at least I'm not planning on it. Chicago or Dallas, yes, I will definitely be doing Dallas. So I think that was rescheduled last I heard for end of October for Halloween weekend. So hopefully that goes well. Okay, so let me see what other brushes I was using earlier. Was this the one I was using? I don't even know what I was using when I was painting earlier. Actually, do you think it was you? We'll use you then. So this one is a number 4, and it depends on the brand. A number 4 may be huge or small depending on the brand you're using. But again, a Teflon bristle filbert. Now here's a big tip for you. When you're painting loose, we have a tendency to want to hold our hand right here and do this here. Do not do this. This is not going to give you good results in almost any style. But what we're going to do instead is hold our hand in the back section. And I'm going to remind you as you're painting, where's your hand on that brush? Make sure that's pulled back. And I think hold on, here we go. So one of the things that you can do, and this will force you to be loose whether you want to or not, extend your arm, hold the end of the brush and paint like this if you need to. Now, you won't see me doing that tonight because I'm pretty comfortable painting loose, so I will hold my brush a little bit more normal and be a little bit closer, but none of this. We're not holding our brush for anything up here. Everything is going to be held back, and if you find you're getting too much detail too tight, again, back up. And the other thing that we're going to be doing is no liner brush. No liner brush at all tonight. No little brushes. Everything's going to be a little bit larger. We may use a round brush for some, we'll see depending on where we get to tonight, but we're going to use brushes that are going to feel too large for you. Go ahead and try to get detail with those large brushes. It forces you to be loose. It forces you. What we're trying to do is focus on our lights and our darks, our contrast. We're using that to create the painting more so than details. We are not depending on details. And if you, like me, if you do photorealism or you're really into any form of realism, it's very hard not to want to make things look realistic by detail. We're going to try to make it look semi-realistic. We're going for more impressionistic, but we're still creating, you can tell what it is, and it will still have depth based on our values, our brush strokes, not our details. So that's what we're really separating here. Let's see. Sergio said, in other words, pretend you're a wizard holding your wand and hopefully dueling. There you go. That is a good way to look at it. Never thought of explaining it that way, but very accurate, or very, very well worded. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with the sky. Again, my sky is kind of messy right now, has some stuff on there because I painted it earlier before my internet completely died. So, or Wi-Fi, I should say. So I need to mix a good amount of paint. Now here, I forgot to take my allergy stuff. I'm all congested from the allergy, so you'll be listening to me clear my throat all night. I apologize. What we need to do, this is really important. When you load your brush, you need to use a lot of paint, a good amount of paint. So if you've ever known someone who learned to play the violin, everyone's scared to make a note, or any instrument really, but it's like instead of making a nice long bold stroke, they may have the right note, but they do this little instead of they're not doing, the note can be the same, but they're just barely letting the hair on the bow touch the strings, and it's making this horrible noise that makes you want to like shove that bow into your own ears to make it stop. That is kind of what happens when people are starting to paint, and especially in this style. They want to just use this tiny bit of paint, and it looks like crap. Don't do that. Load that paint on there. We want to use a decent amount of paint. One of the bigger mistakes that a lot of new people to make in painting will make is not using enough paint. Same thing as learning an instrument. You're trying to be so careful and you make it horrible because of it. Don't be careful. Glob that on. I rarely see somebody that does the opposite that's new, that is using too much paint. So do not be afraid of really getting that paint in there. Ian said, take a look at Mitsubishi High Uni pencil set, top notch. I will have to do that. Sarah said, I usually find that except when I'm doing fine detail, holding my brush back a bit, And keeping my wrist loose works out a lot better when going for a more realistic style. And that's the thing. The more you start painting, you're going to realize holding your brush back or your hand back on the brush, it gives you more control. It feels very awkward at first, but you're going to have more control in the type of brushstroke you're able to make. If you're up here, you're stiff. You don't have very much freedom. You want to back that up and you have so much more freedom. But it does take some getting used to. So let's see. Oh, Laura, it's just Claritin. It's not going to make a huge difference. I'm just going to be a little congested, and I apologize to that, but thank you. Now, another thing, make sure if you do have a question for me, do the @Lachri Fine Art so it highlights in orange so that I can see your question. Otherwise, I just won't see it. I won't be intentionally ignoring you. That's just the inevitable. Joe said, I wonder what caused those screechy sounds sometimes I heard on violins and violas. Usually it's somebody, they're either pushing too hard and not pulling the bow fast enough, so it's like all the pressure but no movement, or they're just barely letting those strings touch. It's a bad sound. It's not good. Do I have any tips for drawing people? Practice. I mean, I'm not going to get through this tonight if I give two. That's a big, that's a big one. Practice, just draw them over and over again. Try tracing, then draw, then tracing, then freehand, tracing, then freehand. I think tracing can help you to notice things you didn't otherwise notice, but practice is my biggest tip for you. Really practice, and by tracing, it's going to teach you to see things accurately as they are and not how your brain thinks they are, and that will help you to become a lot more accurate. But the goal is not to forever have to trace. The goal is to show your brain what things look like and then try freehanding it. So that would be my tip for you there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mix a little bit of blue. A little bit will go a long way. And I'm mixing more paint than I typically would because we've got a whole background to cover. Now, depending on how blue you want your sky, you can add. I'm going to add a little bit of black to tone mine down. Just a little. I was using way too much earlier. Just gray it up a bit. This may be too light. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit darker. Just a bit. Okay. Now for the brush stroke that we're going to do, again, we want to hold our hand back on the brush. The other thing is when I often talk about making crisscross motions. I don't mean X's. That's not cute. No X's. Almost little half circles. Like see how it's slightly curved? I don't want a bunch of confetti lines. See the straight lines? Don't look so cute. Slightly curved. Very slightly curved. So not a huge U. We're not going that way either. Just a little bit. So, and when you're getting the hang of making this brush stroke, you can't mess up. I can look like that. I can do anything on here and I'm going to cover it. So it's not like, oh my God, I made a bad brush stroke. Paint over it. No big deal. If you start getting little dots, and I don't know, I doubt this camera is showing it, but little dots of the white of the background showing through, that right there tells you more paint on your brush, probably more water. Now, usually I thin my paint out quite a bit with water. I'm not going to be doing that here. I use a little bit of water, but not too much because I do want the paint to be a lot thicker than I typically would go. When you're trying to do this style where you're letting your brush stroke show, we do want the paint thicker. I think that the Liquitex Heavy Body and Liquitex Soft Body are a better choice than Liquitex Basics, but I'm too lazy to pull mine out, even though I had all day to do so since, the whole live stream fiasco before. But so I am using Basics, but I'm going to use them thicker. I'm not going to thin them out as much as I normally would. So I'm just going to fill this and let my brush stroke show. Now this is all the same color, so while it will look pretty solid, especially on camera, it'll look more solid than it really does in person, I am building that nice texture, letting that go, and as I need to blend more color in, I intentionally will not always want the color to be the same. So here a little bit darker, so some of those darker brush strokes show. We want to get a little variation in there. We're going to fill the whole sky with this. We're going to put the clouds on top. Let's see. Sergio said, if you were talking quality graphite pencils, Lyra Rembrandt, art design. No, I didn't try those. I was going to go, I haven't used those. Those are smooth as butter. I prefer them over Faber-Castell 9000. Wow. Surprising. I'm just such a fan of the 9000 and I really liked the Derwent, the new Derwents. The old Derwent graphites, they were scratchy. I didn't hate them, but I didn't find myself reaching for them that often. But now the newer ones I really like, and they've got such a huge range. So I'm a big fan of both of those types of pencils. I'm going to go all the way down to where the ground is going to be. I don't care. Blue gets in there. Doesn't matter. I'm painting over that. So you can't really mess anything up because you're just going to layer until it looks right. You see how I'm just very loose with my wrist, back and forth, just kind of crisscrossing back and forth, crisscrossing, not X's. They have to overlap, but I'm not trying to make it too solid. Like here's getting a little bit on the too solid side. Let's bring a little bit more blue in there and get some few brush strokes. We want brush strokes, but we also really want to cover all of the canvas. If you've got bits of canvas showing through, cover that up. And once I get this on there, I'm going to make the bottom section a little bit lighter and fade up into this darker blue. So I get some of that variation. And then we'll do some clouds. You can use a smaller brush, bigger brush. It doesn't really matter. The bigger brush obviously will go faster. Just depends on the size of the brush stroke you want to show. Make sure all of the little dots of the canvas are showing through. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention, and I'm probably forgetting half the stuff I mentioned this morning because in my brain I already told you guys, this is a Frederick's Blue Label Ultra Smooth Canvas. I'm working on a 9x12. You can work on any size really is fine. It's just if you go bigger, I would switch to a slightly bigger brush. It is a ultra smooth, so it is a very, very smooth canvas for this. This style of painting though, you can do smooth or rough. It doesn't really matter the texture wise, but if you go with a canvas that has more tooth where it's more rough, you're going to go thicker with your paint. Load more paint on that brush. And of course, just for transparency, I am sponsored by Frederick's. Jason said, I love Faber-Castell pencils. Yeah, me too. They're good. Okay. Gonna take some white. And I'm not trying to make this completely white. I'm just, while this is still wet, I'm gonna let that be a little bit lighter at the bottom so that I've got some variation. And I'm not covering it all the way. I want some of that darker blue to show through. Mine's getting a bit dry, both my paint and what's on the brush, so we'll just add a little bit of water. Not too much here, way less than I normally would. Back that hand up. Remember, use the back of your brush. Now, what we are not doing here is stabbing or dabbing the canvas, and it almost looks like that because when I work fast, I just looked up and saw it looks like I'm just tapping. Do not tap, do not stab. We're not angry at the canvas. These are actual brush strokes. I'm actually dragging, we'll do that slower, dragging the brush across. But when I go fast, it looks like I'm dabbing. Dabbing is going to look terrible. You're not toe painting right now. This is more of a fine art, brush strokes. Pull the brush across the canvas. Big deal there. So see, brush stroke, I'm actually pulling, not stabbing. Okay, now we are going to start adding in some clouds. I'm going to rinse, or I'm just going to wipe the paint off that brush and then rinse it. Now, this is still pretty, it's not completely dry. That's okay. If some of this blue mixes in with my clouds, even better. So I'm just going to use white for now. I can come back and add shadows later. I'm going to start building up the shape that I want. Again, don't dab, brush strokes. And when this dries, I'll come back through with brighter highlights with definite white. But right now, because I'm working on the blue of the background, it's good because it gives me this really nice soft transition. So these are basically going to be my shadows of the cloud. I'll come back through and do highlights once this dries to get the brighter areas. Thick paint. Joe said, you cover 101 topics that often. This is nice. Or you don't cover 101 topics that often. This is nice. Well, I'm glad you like it. Get some little clouds in here. Yeah, usually I do things more advanced, so I kind of hope that, or assume maybe too much that people already know certain things. So this one is much more basic, so that it makes it easier for my brain to transition into like the very basics. Sergio said, you can tell I am not into painting given that I only bring up pencils. Do acrylics require mixing mediums or specific solvent? Just water. I just use water on mine. Remember, thick paint. Barely any water on this. Normally I use, Sergio, when I usually paint with acrylics, I do thin things out with quite a bit with water, but with this style, we really want the paint to be thicker. Kind of twisting and turning the brush to get some different shapes in those brush strokes so they're not all exact. Remember, actually brush strokes, no stabbing, no dabs. Jason said, do the mediums for paints work better than water so that the polymers don't separate too much? The whole polymer separating and all that is honestly not, it's very loosely based in science. Very loosely. It's not that big of a deal. It's not, I mean, yes, the paints will bind better with a mixing medium, but it doesn't matter. Like, yay, it binds, which makes no difference in the end once I varnish it because it's not coming off once it's varnished. So I don't like that the varnishes give, this kind of needs to set for a minute anyway so I can sit and answer that question. The varnishes make the paint a little bit more goopy than I typically like. The paint just gives me the water gives me the consistency that I want. There are videos out there that are like, this molecule separates from this one if you add this much water, and if you add this much, it separates. It doesn't matter at all. Like, doesn't matter. And there have been studies, like Golden's keep sharing videos that are great that show it doesn't matter. I've known it hasn't mattered for the last 25 years. I've been painting this way. And I paint on furniture. I used to paint on furniture a lot that I would stand on and it wouldn't come. Once it's varnished, that paint's not coming off. It doesn't matter how much water you added. So this idea, now true. Let's say I thin it down a lot and I scrape it before I varnish it. I can scrape it off, but it's not going to otherwise come off. Once it's varnished, that's it. It is sealed down. The video made it sound that everyone refers back to that also happens to have the comments turned off for good reason. It talked about that God, what did she say? It would crack or chip off the canvas. No, it won't. That's not how that works. I mean, you can come up with something in theory, but in practice, if it doesn't happen, then that theory is kind of invalid. Like that's not how it works. So no, you can use water. It does not make it not stick or any of that. Like there is some truth in it. Yes, the more water you add, and this is the truth with the mixing mediums too, the more translucent it is. So that's going to be true for either one. The more water you add, the less adhesive it is. But once you varnish it, it's there. It's not coming off. So when you see paintings where the paint has chipped or flaked off, usually it happened because you either used a bad canvas, bad gesso in combination with that bad canvas, and that's the part that's kind of letting go, or people are painting the paint on there so thick and it's not the right kind of paint for the right type of canvas and it just kind of falls. It's too heavy. Has nothing to do with water. Nothing in those cases. I have never seen water or it flake or anything like with the video, the infamous video, claimed it would do. So no, water's fine. Sergio said, speaking of which, have you tried spray varnish, like your actual varnish? And again, yeah, I've used, and I'll do that as like a first light layer sometimes, especially if it's a white area, because sometimes the varnish will smudge the paint when you're varnishing it if it's a white or light colored background. So in those cases I will, and especially if I've airbrushed things, I will go ahead and put a light spray varnish. The problem I have with the spray varnish is I can never get it perfectly even, super, super glossy. I'm just bad at it. So I've always had better luck with just painting the varnish on. And that's just personal or failure on my part. It's nothing wrong with the spray varnishes. They are perfectly fine. I'm just bad at them. Zita said, hello from the UK. Just wanted to say that you inspired me to pick up painting again after years of not painting. So thank you. That is awesome. Yay. Sam said, nice to see you and everyone tonight. I enjoy your teachings. Keep it up. Thank you. Sarah said, how long does it take the paint to unbind if you don't varnish it? I've never had it happen. Ever. I have paintings here that I have thinned, that tiger I don't think is varnished that's on my wall, and I have thinned that with a lot of paint. I mean, that one's newer. I have paintings that are, 15 years old that I never put a varnish on. They're fine. I mean, I would recommend varnishing. I varnish before I sell just for that added layer of protection, but it doesn't happen. And as long as you're not sitting there with your fingernails scratching the heck out of it, it's fine. So Yeah. Richard said, have you ever used Posca paint pens? I don't think so. I have not. Okay, let's see, maybe get a little bit more clouds in here. Now this is starting to dry, so I can get a few more highlights with the white. I can come back through if I want to go with more of a grayish blue. I'm going to get a little teeny bit of black in here. I'm going to create a light gray for the bottom of some of these clouds, so they're not just flat cotton balls. Get some shadows in there. Again, these are brush strokes. I'm not dabbing. Oops, a little too dark. No problem. If it's too dark, once I blend out a little bit, I can come back through and add white on top or blue or anything. It's nothing to worry about if something is like, oh, that didn't come out right. Okay, this has been really nice having the live stream just do what it's supposed to. Yay for techie husbands. Don't go crazy with the shadows on this one. Even mine are a bit too much. I'm going to come back through with some blue on some of it. Okay, I'm going to rinse that. Linda said, hi Lisa and everyone, I'm a colored pencil artist and enjoy Lisa's colored pencil videos a lot. Thank you for them. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like them. Dawn said, so glad I happened to check my computer before heading to bed. I get to paint tonight. Thank you for being a great teacher. Oh, thank you for joining. Okay, let's get a little bit more clouds in here over that gray. There we go, that looks better. You can have a few little fluffy guys in the distance out there. Okay, I'm calling that good. I may come back through. Oh, maybe I'll let that fade out over here. That's a little weird. That's better. Okay. Gypsy Heart said, how do you keep the canvas from sticking on the edge of the easel? Mine are constantly sticking to the paint on the edge of my easel when I leave it to dry overnight. Well, I don't paint the edges on my easel because as you can see, my easel's really clean. This one is anyway. In this case, I'm not even painting the edges. If I paint the edges on this one, I'll set it flat on like the TV tray or something where I don't care if paint gets all over it. So that's, I'm not painting the edges. Sergio said, would you be able to obtain the same level of opaqueness with another water-based medium such as Inktense? Depending on how you applied it, yes, especially if you mix white in with it, that will give you a lot of opacity. So that definitely could be done. Okay, I'm not going to worry about the trees right now. I'm going to go ahead and start in on this light green that's going to go in these areas. And the color I'm using, what color is that called? It is like a light green. Brilliant yellow green is what I'm using for that. If you don't have that, you can mix white with some yellow and a little bit of whatever green you have. Just play with it. You don't have to have the exact color. It does not make that big of a difference. Go with what you think is pretty. And watch the values. Is it light enough or is it dark enough? That's what matters, not that the colors are exact. So don't worry if you're not using the same colors as me. I have a lot of kind of obscure colors at this point with the Liquitex I've been buying that I didn't used to. I used to mix this color all the time. You're just going to use any of your yellows. It just depends on how yellow you want it to go. Some white and a bit of green. Oh, Gypsy Heart said, I mean the bottom or the areas, the bottom here. So that, again, I'm not really getting paint on those. So, and if I do, I just take a razor blade and scrape it off. That's what I used to do on my other easel. But I'm not really getting paint on the edges. And then here, it does a little bit. I have a piece of contact paper taped to the easel, so if it were start to build up too much like my old easel did, I am just going to peel this up and put a new piece down because mine used to be built, mine was bumpy, like it had a lot of paint on it. Hopefully that is what will help. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and use that lime green, but it's a little bit too green, so I'm going to mix a little bit of my raw sienna. We'll tone it down a bit and we'll pull some white in there to make it even more opaque. And if I go too light, no big deal. If I go too dark, no big deal. I'm going to paint over it. I want brush strokes anyway, so it's not a big deal. The reference photo you can find over at Lachri.com. No, sorry, wrong URL. Patreon.com/Lachri is where you can find the reference photo. And mine is super loosely based off this, like barely based on the photo. So don't worry about it being exact at all. So I'm going to switch to a smaller brush for the brush strokes in the back. Let's go ahead and rinse that brush out. I'm still going to use my tackle and bristle brushes, and they're still going to be bigger than what you might be comfortable with. But I want these brush strokes to be a little bit smaller. Let's mix some more of this color. So again, I'm using this, what was it, light yellow green, white, and raw sienna. No, raw, what am I using? I always get these backwards. Yes, raw sienna. And I just hit my can. It has just been one of those days. I should be having wine instead of coffee at this point. Okay, let's move that back. Here we go. Have I painted a wall mural in my studio? Sort of, kind of. I painted it teal. I got it to fade up to light teal from like dark teal and gray, and then I put some branches, but it's not like I don't know, it wouldn't be what I would consider the murals I used to do when I did like full scenes. Okay, there we go. Now this is a little bit too brownish, but that's okay. Same thing, we want the brush strokes to show. I'm gonna go right up to the sky. I'm gonna pull a little bit more white and a little bit more of my green into this. We've got a hill that comes up here, so it'll come up a bit higher. Let those brush strokes, I've got a lot of, my paint's from mixing is a little globby, so let's pull some of that off. See, I'm still holding the brush at the back end. Still a tackle on bristled filbert, just a little bit smaller, so my brush strokes can be a little smaller, being that that's off in the distance. Let's see. Can I show the reference picture for police? You have to go look for it. I don't have it on this computer. There's nowhere on the screen for me to put the reference, so that's why I told you guys can go. I've loaded it there so you guys can go get it. Let's see. Have I paid? And it's free. You don't have to be a member to Patreon to get that one. Let's see. Lee said, I have used blue tack to raise the canvas. Yeah, you could do that. We're going to come around here. Same thing. I want to go all the way up to the sky. I'm not trying to make a perfectly straight line. It's okay to me if it's a little bumpy. There's going to be a little bit, it looks like, in between these trees back here. And I'm really not using much in the way of water on this because these colors I'm using here are a little too translucent. This would really be shows we're using more opaque colors for this style, like heavy body, Liquitex heavy body, Liquitex soft body. Those are going to be more opaque, and those are really technically more suited to this style of painting. Goldens would be a good fit, but you can make it work with these. Okay, and now I'm going to come back through, I'm going to actually wipe a bunch of this off the brush, come back through with just straight white because I want it to mix in and lighten this up a lot. I'm a lot darker than I really need to be. Especially back in this corner. Were you able to find that reference photo over on Patreon? It should have been marked. I redid it, and I'm hoping I made it as a public post. It's just something I found off Pixabay. Like I said, it's super loosely based off that. Well, we sure got a lot more done than the hour we tried this earlier, huh? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get this grayish green color now. I can take the same color that I'm using. I'm going to add a little bit of black to it to gray it up. I want to get a little bit of a muddy color here. We'll get a few dark bits kind of coming down that hill. See, again, holding my brush back. A little bit, whoops, that's too much. A little bit darker though. A little bit darker. Sam said, it appears that you aren't smoothing your paint as you stroke on it. Are you leaving texture on the canvas or will it dry flat? It's hard for me to tell on my screen. Yes, there is definitely texture on this. I'm not trying to smooth it out. So this is not like when I'm trying to do something super realistic where I'm really blending everything. Texture's good. We want texture here. So no, I am definitely not blending it out there. There's the airbrush. We've got this little hill here. We've got some dark areas over here. It looks like a little road that kind of comes through. I'll just give it a little hint. You see, that's it for detail. You might want to come through and use a liner brush to get the detail, but we don't want that. So Susan said, yes, I am not tech savvy. Had to lose the speed when I went looking. Came right back though. Don't want to miss anything. Okay, good. Got you. Glad you found that. Yeah, I meant to put a link to that in the description or tell people in that. I should have done that before. This has seriously been, yeah, it's been one of those days. Slightly longer brush strokes here where I want this to fade out. But I've got to stop because it's going to start blending too much and I don't really want that either. So I'm going to leave that for now. I'm going to come back through with more defined greens in here, but I need this to dry because it's starting to kind of get muddy and just make a mess. So while that dries, I can go ahead and block in. I'm going to switch to a larger brush and get these darker areas, the base of those in. Sam said, okay, thanks, didn't think so. And I really like this look. I love the texture. Celia said, it is posted on Patreon, the reference photo. Good. Yeah, I had it on there and then I deleted it when I thought that I wasn't going to do the live stream. And then I was like, well, I'll just go ahead and record this and upload it as an edited video tonight. But then I'm like, I've got to figure out what this problem is anyway. So this is our test to make sure the live stream is working fine, which it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and get some of our darks in here. Now, one of the reference photos shows that, here's on my nose, it shows that this is super, super light. I messed with mine in Photoshop and I came up with mine where it's super, super dark here and I loved the look. And so that's what I'm going for on mine. Sam said it's going to be one of those days for a while for all of us. That is true. Grab a glass of wine and enjoy. Yeah, that after this is what I am doing. So I'm going to switch back to the first brush that I used on the clouds. This one is a bit larger than the one I was just using. You could use the same brush for all of this, really. It's don't worry about it if you don't have a bunch of filberts. So I'm going to use Hunter Green, or no, sorry, Hooker's Green. Hookers, Hunters, I don't know, what is this one? Hookers. I'm going to go ahead and glob that on there. I'm going to add a little bit of black. Now, typically I don't add I mean, I try to mix the colors without black when possible. This one, because of the look I'm going for, I'm mixing black in with everything. It kind of grays it up a bit. It does deaden it a bit, but I don't want this to be too like, wow, you like the oversaturated stuff. Let's see. Suju said, you mentioned something regarding a live stream for Derwent. Oh, Jason wants to know if I've cleaned my airbrushes, and no, I have not. I'm terrible. For Derwent, yes, if you haven't already, and I'll post it in our art group, join the Art of Wellness on art group on Facebook. It's run by Derwent, and they've got demonstrators that are occasionally demonstrating through all of our quorum paintings. That color works out really nicely. And yeah, that is what I will be doing. It'll just be like a 30 to 40 minute or so quick demonstration. It won't be quite like these live streams. So I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing yet. It'll be an Inktense. Excuse me. I've got to figure out what I want to do that I can get done that quickly. And that was why earlier I'm like, I have to figure out this live stream thing. Because at first I'm like, fine, till if this is just everyone using the internet, which is not what it actually was, I'll just keep uploading, edit and upload stuff. And I'm like, that won't work. I actually have live streams to do. This is stupid. So this is that hooker's green with a little bit of black mixed in. Remember, we're not stabbing the canvas. These are, I'm just doing little brush strokes. Bigger brush strokes as I move forward. Caroline said, how do you hang canvases without a frame? You can still put a stretcher or the screws that I would put into a frame, you can use the same ones on the inside of a stretcher bar and a wire, or a lot of these I'm just hanging it on the stretcher bars on the nail itself. That didn't work as well when I was in California because of the earthquakes. It's not as stable in that case, but here, I mean, it's really not a problem here. So those are my two ways. On something especially lightweight like this, I just put a nail in the wall and hang it on there, or something like this, I could just use 3M tape usually works. I've only had one fall when using 3M tape once. It was in my office. Actually, I shared that on Instagram today. That one of them had fallen. It luckily didn't get damaged at all. I'm going to start mixing a little bit more black. So this is opposite. Usually when you move forward in a scene like this, you're going to get lighter, more yellows, brighter colors up close, and that helps you to get that the depth in the piece. You get, like, your perspective looks a little bit better that way, or you develop depth. This is the opposite. This gets darker as we move our way forward. Remember, I'm not stabbing. If I slow this down, it's a brush stroke. They overlap each other back and forth. Keep your hand back on there. We're not getting up here. If your hand is up here, you're doing it wrong. Let's see. Have you tried the golden open acrylic? I haven't, because someone gave me some too. I need to try them. But I don't need my acrylics to stay open. I don't want them to stay open. Like, that kind of defeats, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding how the open acrylics work. That is possible. But the way that I layer, the way that I glaze, it's like, it doesn't make sense to me that that would be a fit for me. And I could be wrong. I guess I should try them before I make that determination, huh? I'm going to add a little bit more black, and I'll come back through with green to lighten some of this up, but I'm going to make a little bit of a shadowy kind of hill, so I get these horizontal lines in a couple of these areas. You'll see in your landscapes, you have a lot of rows in things. So here I've got like a row here, I've got a row here. Look for that in your landscapes. In the grass, you'll see shadow rows. Everything has a little bit of rows, and you don't want, straight lines, but look for that when you're looking at your reference photos. Suzanne said, those little strokes look like awesome little shrubs. Good. That's what I'm hoping for here. Sam said, sometimes things do appear darker in real life though. So out of curiosity, are you doing it darker than up close because you like it, right? Yes, I'm doing it just because I like it, because I messed around with it in Photoshop and I came up with that, and I just loved that look. So that is why I'm doing that. Personal preference there. Joe said, do you tend to reach for multi-pigment greens like Sap or Hooker's Pure over phthalo green? Yes. More often than not. Usually the only time I use phthalo green is in underwater scenes where I want that bluish tint, or if I'm mixing it with phthalo blue to get teal. I don't really use it that often. It's a bit too, I don't know, too green for me. I typically like things that are a little bit more muted when I'm painting. And that's not to say you can't mute phthalo green, but Hooker's green is one of my favorites. Sap green is another favorite. Yeah. That's actually going to get a lot lighter. There we go. Add a little bit of water. A little bit more water than I needed, but it gave me a really nice light area there. I'm going to pull this up. And I'm going to lighten some of these areas once this layer dries. We've got where the trees are going to go in here. This little outcropping, a shadow or something. We'll throw that in there. Now here's too light. We're going to go ahead and kind of muddy these up a little bit, but I don't want to use that brush. That one I think is going to be a little too big. So I'm going to switch back to the small one again. I'm going to use that same darker green. I'm just going to make a few little brush strokes, little dabby, I shouldn't say dabby because it's not dabs, but they're just shorter. So I think someone will take that, the word dab, a little too literal. Getting comfy over there, Wade? What are you doing up? Lay down. We've got like a little hill back there. We'll add that shadow. Oh, Matt is making food or something in there. I can hear packages opening. I think that's what Wade is up for. He hears those. You are not going out for that. No, Wade, lay down. You're not going out. You're not going to go beg for food. We haven't really taught him that lesson very well yet. We definitely have to work with him on that. I'm going to get some more of the light green and just kind of let that layer in. There, that's giving me a much better texture on that. Yeah, we're getting to the point now with Wade. He's been here for a little over a week, week and a half or so. And he's doing really well. He's getting over a lot of the fear, but now we need to start teaching him like manners. Yeah, you stay away from Gibson. He will bite your face off if you get near his bed. Wade, leave it, leave it. He's learning, leave it, good. Go lay down. He has no idea what I'm saying when I tell him to go lay down. He doesn't know to come. He'll kind of like follow my voice around just because it's interesting to him, but he doesn't really know the term come like Gibson does. So we've got to do some training there on him. But now that he's over the fear stage, now I think we're getting ready to go ahead and start teaching him like good house manners. Okay, where were we on questions? What brand of white colored pencil do you prefer? Depends on what I'm doing, but my two favorites I would say are my go-tos are my Derwent Drawing Chinese White, and that's going to be your brightest white, but it's a very thick, very soft pencil, so it's harder to get details with that. For details, I switch over to my Luminance White, my Caran d'Ache Luminance White. Where were we? Sneak said, how is Wade settling in? He's doing really good. Sam said, my neighbors made me want burgers last night. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, they invited my husband over for one, so he was over there. I went over and hung out. That sounds like I'm not doing the whole stay-at-home self-quarantine. We help each other with each other's dogs. We're like, those are the only two people I'm exposed to right now besides my husband. So that is just going to happen anyway. But yeah, we went over there after the stream. Gail said, I guess I missed that you adopted another dog. Congrats. Thank you. Nick said, he asks, my green looks a little transparent. What should I do? If it's transparent and dark, you can add white to it. If it's transparent and too light, add a little bit of black to it. Or if it's transparent, like even if you want to add maybe red oxide or like a brownish burnt sienna would be an option. That will help give you a neutral kind of green, but it will also, if at least with the Liquitex Basics, it will help to make it a little bit more opaque. Okay, so I'm going to use this same green and start pulling in a few little highlights here. Yeah, I'm technically we're fostering Wade. The official adoption, he has to be here. They want you to foster them, or want them to be fostered, I should say. Usually it's not the person fostering who is the person who intends to adopt, but they want him to be fostered for 2 weeks before you go through the actual adoption stuff. We're gonna go on Tuesday and pick up we're going to put him over onto a raw diet. I'm using that light green, by the way, just the green. I'm not adding white. I'm just kind of softening up a few brush strokes in here. We're going to switch his diet over to what Wade's on, or what Gibson's on, sorry. And then Monday I get to go take pictures of all the other greyhounds who need homes to try to help them because there's way too many in rescue right now because of the tracks closing in Florida. So if you ever thought about adopting a greyhound, this is the time to do it. There are so many in rescue because of them closing those tracks. Let's see. Andrea said, glad to see Wade is fitting in. How is it different getting an adult dog as compared to a puppy? Easier, harder? I would say overall easier. The only thing that's a little bit more of a challenge is I've got 2 adult males who are both about 2 years old, and they've got to figure out who's going to be the boss. And so that can be a very nasty fight. Luckily, we've got muzzles. So like if they're playing, if they're getting a little rough, or if I see any sign of anyone challenging anyone, they can wear those and still play. But like Wade, when was that? One of the first days he was here, he went and marked Gibson. Gibson was out going to the bathroom, and he's like, oh, you're standing still. I'm going to go lift my leg on you. So Gibson didn't even have any clue. He didn't care. I care because I have to wash him. But yeah, that's a little bit more of a challenge as far as settling in. I think that, you know, as a puppy, bringing a puppy in, the other dog tends to be more tolerant, whereas 2 adults, less so. They're both neutered, so that's good, but they were only both neutered a couple of months ago. So, you know, you still got some of that going on. Yeah. So that is the only bad thing, I would say. The good thing is they're not, now Wade does he'll look at me, he'll be making eye contact and go over and just bite my couch. Like, stop it. You're watching me. Like, he's watching me as he does it. So Wade is a bit more destructive, and we have to keep an eye on him because he does want to gnaw on, but he does it in a lazy way. Like, he doesn't seek out something to chew on. He's like, oh, this is next to me. I'm just going to lean over and bite it. So he's actually really funny. But, well, funny because he hasn't actually eaten the couch yet. I'm just making little brush strokes, by the way, with that green, the lighter green. That, again, if you're using the same as me, that one is the brilliant yellow green. But he's getting the potty training. They just came potty trained. Wade had to wear his belly band for a few days to make sure he was going to be good with that. But they've never lived in a house, and it doesn't matter. Like, they're just so easy. Much easier than my Italian Greyhounds. But they're perfect with that. They already walk nice on a leash because they were trained to do that already. I'm just taking little highlights here and there, not too many. So overall, I would say going with an older dog is easier. They're not as rambunctious. They're not, you know, they play, and then it's a Greyhound. They're mostly lazy anyway. But you're already out of the scary stage of, like, if you get a puppy, you've got to worry about parvo and distemper and all that until they're 4 months old and done with their vaccines. They're already vaccinated. They're already set. They're already neutered. I don't have to deal with that. So you have there's definitely a lot of benefits to starting with a dog that's a bit older than a puppy. It's been definitely, overall, I would say like 90% of the transition has been easier because they're older. Let's see. Suzanne said, maybe do a quiz a couple times a year. How well do you know, Lisa? Your sponsors could give some gift cards to people to win and spend on tools. You know, that's a good idea. And I bet, Derwent especially, I bet we could get to do some giveaways with us. We'll have to, that would be fun. Or just some kind of a giveaway with them would be fun. Chrissy said, so basically you have 2 stubborn teenage sons. Yes, that sounds about right. Jason said, he is testing his limits. Yes, he is. But he's good. He really is good. I was a little bit worried because Gibson was so perfect. Like, everything with Gibson has been easy. Everything has been easy with Gibson. So, other than, like, we can't let him sleep on the bed or the furniture because he gets a bit territorial of that. And so he's just not allowed on them. But no, Gibson was the easiest dog to transition, like easiest dog I've ever lived with by a lot. And so when we went to get Wade, I wasn't planning on getting a new dog. I'm just letting this dry while I ramble. I wasn't planning on getting a new dog for like a year or so. And I was really enjoying how easy life is with Gibson. And my Italian Greyhounds are super old. So they just, for the most part, sleep. They'll come out and say hi occasionally, but they mostly just sleep. So I've joked, it's more like I have 2 weird looking cats than dogs there. So Gibson he's just been so easy. So I'm like, ooh, do I want to add one to the mix? Did we just get super lucky with Gibson? Wade has been a little bit more work because he was so scared when he came to us. But he's now, and it's only been a week and a half, he has fit in so well, so much faster than I expected. So I am glad that we went ahead and got him now versus waiting. So yeah, he's tested us a bit more than Gibson, but not terrible. Not as much as a puppy would have. How dry are you? You're getting there. Okay, I guess I can paint in the road next. Okay. I'm going to switch to a slightly larger one. So the one that I used for the sky, and down here I'll use that same one for the road. Actually, no, I think I'm going to stay with a small one for the road so I get a little bit of a different brush stroke. Not because the brush strokes need to be smaller, just it'll give me a little bit of a different texture than if I use the same big brush that I used in those areas. So we'll go ahead and switch over. Now I've got to mix a tan color. So I'll use in my case, I'm going to use some raw sienna. I've got some bronze yellow. Let's throw some of that in there. I'm just grabbing stuff. I just need a muddy grayish color, really. It's not like you have to have the perfect color, but I need a lot of white and some black to give me that grayish tone. Whenever you're painting and you look at something, you're like, it's like grayish tan, or it's grayish green, or it's grayish anything. That right there tells you black and white. You have to have black and white to get that grayish tone, and then a bit of whatever the other color is that you're trying to mix in. Yeah, that'll work. That can be my dark, and then I'll add some white on top to get the lighter bits. So we've got, it's just going to fade out in the distance here. I'll have to put some green a little bit over some of that in the background because that's a little too thick. Yeah, I definitely, after having gone through, gotten the 2 adult dogs, I think that's a lot easier than getting to, like, the thought of getting 2 puppies, because I don't know how long racing will go on, being that all the animal rights nuts are trying to shut that down. So and don't get me wrong, I'm all for keeping animals safe and healthy and happy and all that, but racing greyhounds, they love racing. There's nothing mean about that. They love racing. If a dog is unhappy, he's not going to race well. So anyway, I mean, you may get some people who do it badly, but at least here in the U.S., and you guys have heard me rant about this before. It is highly regulated. There have been times it was bad, but you're more likely to have a dog who's abused in somebody who just owns a dog than you are in the racing industry. So anyway, it's sad to me to see that going away because you're not going to be able to adopt greyhounds because there aren't going to be any to adopt coming up, if this keeps up. So anyway, Florida's done for now. But if I wanted to get another greyhound in the future, we'll have to, you go through a breeder and likely end up with a puppy unless you get a retired show dog. But I'm like, the older ones were so much easier though. Of course, I'm mostly comparing to Italian Greyhound puppies, which is, my girls were puppies when I got them. Everything's easier than an Italian Greyhound. Those are little drama queens. I mean, not now, but they were. So I've got, again, you can see my brush strokes. There's some texture in there. Now I'm going to come back through. I'm going to wipe that brush off. I don't even have to rinse it. I'm just going to wipe it and scoop straight white. I'm going to use some white for the highlights right on top of it. I'm going to go around the edges here. And then on the outside, both outside edges, I'm going to leave the inside a little bit dark. I can come back through and make it even darker if I need to. Remember, brush strokes, no dabbing. Actually wipe the brush on the canvas. It's small little wipes, but make sure you're doing that. Mine's a little bit too wet, so it's kind of blending in. I should let that set for just a moment so that the white will stand out a bit more. Joe said, oh, wait, no, I skipped a little bit more. Renee said, so the new dog is a keeper. Oh, absolutely. The only reason we wouldn't keep him is if he wasn't getting along with Gibson, but they're doing really well. Like, they seem to really, besides Gibson not wanting anyone, but that's just how Gibson is. He doesn't want anyone near him when he's in his bed. No, they're doing really well. Let's see. Joe said, speaking of sponsorships, I meant to ask the other night, did your Frederick sponsorship predate YouTube? No, it didn't. I already had, I would say about 6 months before I started working with Fredericks, I had already sworn off all other canvases. I had a few bad experiences and I'm like, never again. I'm sticking with Fredericks. I'm never chancing these issues coming up again. I know I can trust Fredericks. So I was already like, that's it, only Fredericks. That was about 6 months before. And Fredericks contacted me. They had something on social media. I think that's how they found me. On Facebook, they posted something and I had replied like, oh, here's my painting, or I don't know what it was. And so they contacted me. I think it was a giveaway, actually. I entered the giveaway and they're like, actually, can we give you some paintings and you can do a video sponsor? So we started working together that way. So that worked really, really well. But yeah, I don't remember how long I was on YouTube. Maybe 6 or 7, 8 months into YouTube, they contacted me, because it was not long after I started YouTube that I was like, that's it. I am done with these crap canvases from other, the generic brands. That's one of the things that really bugs me with a lot of the, like Michaels and Hobby Lobby. They have their house brands. They make more money selling you their generic crap. I love the generic brushes. This one's not generic. That's a rolling nickel. But I mean, I use a lot of generic brushes, but the paint, the canvases, no, not a fan. And so they're getting rid of the good stuff and replacing it with their crap. And the canvases were one of it. And I started having a lot of problems with those canvases. I'm going to start making my brush strokes a little bit more side to side here. I want to make sure they are showing side to side. Now that I have that in there, this is going to help with my perspective. This is not a bushy road. So we'll remember side to side there. And I'm going to come back through. I need this to dry a little bit so I can put the darks in. So we're going to let that set. And I'll get caught up on some questions while that sets. It doesn't need to be 100% dry. Normally you hear me talk about when I'm painting, make sure this layer is 100% dry before you go on to the next. You don't have to do that with this. I just need it to set a little bit because the paint is so thick. When it's that thick and wet, I put another paint on top, color on top, they just blend into a muddy mess. So I'm going to let that set for just a moment. Let's see. Just a reminder, make sure you're doing the @Lachri Fine Art if you have a question for me or a comment you want me to read. If it doesn't highlight in orange, I just don't see your comment. I'm not intending to ignore you, but that's kind of the end result. I just don't see the question. Sam said, I'm working on watercolor tonight, and I feel like I want to try your painting that you are doing tonight. Are you okay with me? Yeah, try it with watercolor. Share. I'd love to see how it comes out. This definitely, you're going to do it a little bit different with watercolor, obviously, but I think this would make for a great subject in watercolor. Jason said, are not all puppies prima donnas? Yeah, most of them. 1 second, my mom's calling. Let me let her know that I am live streaming. Hey, I'm actually live streaming right now because today was a disaster of internet issues, so I'm doing it tonight. So I can't really talk, but I just wanted to let you know so you didn't think I didn't love you anymore. Love you. Bye. I have the best mom. Everyone should be jealous. Okay. And yes, all puppies I think are prima donnas, but Italian Greyhounds, worse so than most. Sam said, are you okay with me copying your current painting? Absolutely. Not a problem at all. I mean, this is a loosely based reference photo I got from Pixabay, so I don't even technically have rights to it. You could say you were copying that photo. I mean, yours isn't going to be exact, so yeah, definitely. But in this, I'm good with everybody copying. Okay, hopefully that set a little. Nope, needs to dry a little bit more. We almost get to do trees. That's the fun part to me. That makes such a difference in the scene. This is actually pretty how it is, but I think I'm pretty excited about the trees. So much condensation. That's one of the things with Texas, total random thought here, that was very odd to me. In California, it's very dry. And so there was just not a lot of condensation here. Oh my gosh, you pick up a cup and water just pours off the bottom and collected there. Texas, definitely much more humid. Gypsy Heart said, do you feel like the word mixed media might be seen less valuable to potential buyers? Like they automatically assume it's worth less? You know, it's funny. It can. I don't think it does make it less valuable, but it feels almost like, I don't know the term mixed, if that's like, oh, it's not a purebred painting or something. I don't know what it is, but no, I've seen that a little bit where some people don't. And I wonder if it's because so many artists who do mixed media are using materials that are not light fast. A lot of people assume acrylic and oil paintings are just worth more. They like the sound, especially of oil painting, they like the sound of it. That doesn't mean it's worth more. But a lot of it can happen where buyers are kind of like, I think that's, what is this happening? Oh, insert ad. Oh, how weird. I can push a button and just randomly put an ad. Yeah, I'm not going to push that button. Sorry. I just saw that button and was like, where did that come from? YouTube's always changing things. We don't need ads in live streams. But no, I think it can have a little bit of an idea. I mean, same way where some people think watercolors are just not worth as much. Well, part of that I think comes down to, in the beginning, a lot of artists, and this is just one of many factors, but a lot of artists were using watercolors. Watercolors have been hard to get light fast. And so same with colored pencils and stuff like that. They fade really quick. So of course they're not going to hold as much value as an oil painting or an acrylic painting that wouldn't fade. So I think that can. But in the end, I think the artwork for most buyers is what's going to make the biggest difference. Not necessarily the medium, but like, does the painting you created speak to them in some way? Do they look at that and go, I need to own that? There are very few artists that happens to me with, and it does not matter to me maybe my attitude's a bit skewed because I am also an artist, but it does not matter to me one bit what medium they use, as long as it's light fast. I'm like, oh my God, I want that. I own a painting from one, Chris, I can't remember his last name, Chris something. He does, like he does the stuff, which you guys know I like because I painted that before. Whales swimming through forests and stuff. And his work is amazing. I cannot think of his name, Chris something. I don't remember names, so it's not even like, oh, I'm just not paying attention. No, I love his work and I cannot think of it off the top of my head. I think he's up in Canada, but no, I mean, in that case, as long as the work is light or, you know, archival, I want it. I'm like that. I need to own that. So, it depends on the buyer, but I think if you can paint something that really speaks to the person, that's going to make a bigger difference than whatever medium you used. And a lot of times, like if I were to tell somebody, oh, do you want this in an oil painting or an acrylic paint or an oil painting or a colored pencil? They're going to be like, well, obviously oil painting, until they see my colored pencil. Then they may change their mind when they realize my colored pencils look the same as my oil paintings. It's just one's going to be behind glass is kind of the bigger difference there. Let's see. Where were we? Dee Dee said, oh, you told me your actual name and now I don't, was it Danielle? Oh, I forget now. What kind of problems were you having with the Michaels canvases? Because that is what I use. What should I be looking for? I was having the stretcher bars warp really bad. So you'd like lay it on the floor and one side is angled up and I could buy it flat and it would end up all warped. I've had problems where the paint didn't want to stick to the canvas in certain areas and have like a big, like someone put an oil spot on her. I don't know if they had an oily finger and touched it or what, but there were a lot of times where the paint was just not, acrylics weren't sticking to different areas. I had problems where they tore really easily. I have never had that problem with Fredericks, with any of those problems. But the warp stretcher bars were a really big one because it's like, in order for me to sell that, yeah, I can fix it by putting it in a frame that's going to hold it flat, you know, where it's supposed to be. But I don't always frame things when I sell it. So I have to frame those ones in order to sell. That's a big deal to me. That and I just like the texture of the Fredericks. And the funny thing is, so those were my main reasons that I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to stay with Fredericks. Well, after I started working with Fredericks, that's when I, you know, started talking to them more and found out they have a very special way that they use, the gesso they use, it bonds or like binds, not bonds, it binds to the canvas. It's not coming off, like it isn't good. Their whole, like the supplies that they use, everything they do is amazing. So the more I learned about them, the more I'm like, oh, that was a good decision to decide they were all I was going to use. Let's see. Joseph said, my mom and your mom now have to have a mama for best mom. It is the way. Sam said, okay, thank you. I'm not selling either, and it may end up being in the bin, but one can only try, right? No, try. Yeah, absolutely try. That's how you learn. It doesn't matter if you don't like what you came up with. It doesn't matter how good or bad that thing was. You learned from that. Finish it. Always finish. That's how you're going to learn, but finish it. But even here, I'm like, maybe I should switch it and make dark in the back and light up front. And I'm like, I'm going to try it this way. This one looked like it was going to be cool. The only way I'm going to find out if I really liked it is if I tried it. And I definitely do. I'm loving this so far. So this should be set enough. I'm going to go ahead and put my darker shadow. So I'm going to get my black. Actually, I want this to be more of a brown. So I am going to get another paint out. I'm going to use, which one did I grab? Burnt sienna. That'll work. Burnt sienna or red oxide, which are very similar. Those colors, when you mix a little bit of that with black, you'll get like a chocolate brown, which is what I'm going for here. I used to buy a lot of and even this one's a little bit goopy. I would buy the, what's it called? Like Van Dyke brown and all those. For some reason, that paint and the Liquitex, it always like goops up really weird. It's still usable, but it's kind of annoying to me. And I don't use it often enough. And then that may be the thing. I just wasn't going through it fast enough. So now I just mix the raw sienna or, red oxide or burnt sienna. Either of those work. You mix that with black and you get real nice colors, tones of brown. And I go through it faster because I'm going to use those colors for other things too. So I don't really find myself buying brown paint anymore. Lee said, is the small white area on the left going to be a tree? Yes, they're going to have a tree here. You're going to have some coming back here and then some curving around the very back line there. So I'm going to take this brown. Maybe I'm a little dark. Well, no, it's actually fine. I'm going to layer that in a little bit I'm going to add a little bit of water to that. It's layering into the green and a little bit into the road. Not too much into the road yet. It's going to get thicker as we move forward. Right along there where that is sticking up. I'm going to put a little bit in here in the center. So again, we create these rows that we were talking about earlier. Little bit here, not too much. Now I'm also going to start pulling, again, horizontal. On our road, we want to try to keep these horizontal lines. Now when I say horizontal, I don't just mean straight lines. I mean actually parallel to the bottom of the canvas. As it curves up, you might want to, here, actually, I think I need to do a little demonstration for you here on getting your perspective. There it is. So we've got our road. Let's see if I can find the page I drew that on. It should be over here somewhere. Okay, I know it's in here. Oh wait, there it was. I just saw you. Come back. There we go. Okay. So on our road, when I talk about wanting horizontal lines, I mean actually parallel to the ground, horizontal. What I don't want to see you do is line it with this. I don't mean straight lines that go at an angle that follow the road. Even as I come up here, I'm still wanting to keep it horizontal. So that's what I'm doing as I build these lines. That's very important. You start getting those diagonal lines, you start like wanting to curve them up the direction of the road, you just screwed up your perspective. I mean, you screw it up, you're just gonna paint over it, so it's not the end of the world, but let's try not to. Let's make our lives a little bit easier. I've got a shadowed area. I've got a bit of white of water in this now. This is technically a glaze. It's thinned down a lot to get this color the way I wanted without having to mix it with white again. So we've got the center is a little bit darker. I may have to put another layer over that as we get going. We'll see. I'm going to put it up here. It gets a lot darker. Then again, with the edges, I'm going to pull some of these horizontal. Now, when I say the horizontal lines, I'm not pulling them all the way across. See how they just come out a little bit? I was just using that as an example there. Just a little bit here and there. We're not trying to make it look striped. Okay, next we get to do some trees. Let's see, where were we? Oops, I haven't scrolled away. Whoa, let's get caught up on some questions before we go into the trees. 1 second. Where were we? Okay, Sam said, I must say, I like your loose painting of the original better. I do also prefer the darker bushy up front. I feel like they're standing behind the bush taking the photo. Yeah, I'm just liking, because it has a more abstract-y feel. I mean, it's technically more impressionistic, but I'm liking the depth that this gave a lot. I'm pretty happy with it. Nick said, if you want, oh, yes, again, remember, do the at Lachri fine art, so it highlights in orange. If you can't get that to work, not judging you, I can't either, ask one of the moderators or somebody else to do it for you, and they can ask your question for you. I've noticed that the canvas itself is very rough. Are others smoother? You're using one from Michael's, I believe. Yeah, theirs are more of a medium textured. Usually, there are definitely some smoother canvases. My favorite smooth canvases are either the watercolor canvas boards. I like Frederick's, the ones that I had from Hobby Lobby. Those are the ones that I put the holes in, like they're paper thin. But the watercolor canvas boards, linen is very smooth. And then this is the Frederick's Blue Label. Now the Frederick's Blue Label is going to be one of your more inexpensive, but still really, really smooth canvases. Really nice, like it's kind of your mid-range. The quality is still amazing, but it's not linen. You're going to have to sell one of your arms. Not just because of Frederick's, just that's how linen canvases are very expensive. Watercolor canvases, those ones, I love them, but also they are going to be more prone to tearing than a normal canvas like this, but the generic ones even more so. So let's see. Dan says, if you think Cali's condensation is bad, no, California wasn't bad at all. Theirs was better. It's here in Texas that's so bad. Let's see. Spend some time in Galatia. especially in the summer. I think everything is cool and moist thanks to the Atlantic Ocean. Let's see. Yeah, Dallas is really bad. There's so much humid here. It's very humid. JT, I like it. I'm fine with that. It's just messy when I pick up a cup and water goes everywhere. Is there a way to fix the warped canvas? I have one that's warped and I just figured I'll never sell it. Well, what's warped? Is it the stretcher bars? If it's the stretcher bars, you can remove the canvas and then restaple it on new stretcher bars. If that's what's warped. If it's the canvas itself is stretched, then you're just going to take a spray bottle with water, mist the back, and take a hairdryer and dry it, and it should dry back into shape. We're pretty darn close anyway. Let's see. Get caught up on these questions, then we'll start the trees. Gypsy Heart said, yes, I have swapped the canvas after discovering that a while back. I started watching Cinnamon Cooney learning, but I got motivated by you to move past beginner projects and challenge myself. That is awesome. Suzanne said, those hot spots on the canvas, I just thought I did something wrong. It didn't occur to me that it's a poor quality canvas. Can something else I learned tonight? Yeah, I don't know if it's just their, like, whoever stretched it or made them had oily hands and got their lunch on the canvas. I don't know what caused the problem, because it would only be like spots in the canvas. The paint wouldn't get in there, and that was frustrating. Sam said, I don't ever do this, so I'm nervous, but how would I go about sending you my painting for critique if it does turn out half decent? I'm not anywhere close as good to you. Well, I'd like to see it for critique or not. Just post in one of our art groups. That would be great. Either on MeWe, links in the description, or on Facebook. We've got groups both. But, and tag me in it, or if you're on Instagram, post it and tag me in it so I can see. But for critique, I'm not opening up for critique right now. That won't be for, I don't know when I do the next critique video, but I let everyone know, and I either take them from Facebook or MeWe at that point. Marcel said, what color are you using now? I don't know when you asked that. It was probably when this was the last thing I was painting. That was when I mixed the burnt sienna with black and then some water, so it was thin enough to let the background colors show through. And I'm still going to come through and add some texture to this later. Where were we? I got lost with that color you're using there. And that's probably what it was. The burnt sienna mixed with a bit of black to get that brown color. You could also just use brown if you have that. Jerry said, I have been using Frederick's canvases for 30 years. I was looking for some to buy locally because I didn't want to wait on my order. They are not available here at all. Yeah, it's so frustrating because all of the local places now are carrying their generic crap, and it is crap. Usable crap, I guess, but I won't pay for it because I sell my art. I can't have those problems happening. So we luckily have, what are they called? My brain just shut down. We have 2 local art stores. Gosh, I can't even think of the name right now. It's a short name. It'll come to me later. That they sell a ton of Fredericks, and they're always 50% off. I'm like, why can't I think of the name? I think it's on my website. Maybe not. I don't know. Okay. Have I stretched my own canvases? Yeah, I have. I don't choose to because I find, just like wrapping paper, I end up with so much excess left over. I'm wasting money. I just buy the sizes that I want now. I mean, if I have to stretch a canvas, I can. I know how. I've done it enough, but I definitely find that I was not saving money. If anything, I felt like I was just wasting a lot of product. Let's see. Jerry said, I came across Winsor & Newton canvases at Michael's on clearance sale. 75% off. They are beautiful canvases. The stretcher bars are heavier and thicker than Frederick's. Nice. Andrea said, how long does it take the paint to dry when you put it on this thick? Mine's mostly dry. That's pretty, part of it's going to depend on how hot your area is and how humid it is. So mine's going to be a little bit slower just because of the humidity, but mine's pretty much dry at this point. Okay, trees. Which brush do I want to use? I think I'm going to use the little ones again to get a little bit of a different texture size than what I have in the, brush stroke that I have up here. So let's go here. Gypsy Heart said, I just recently posted my first graphite piece of a rose I did. I have you in my head the whole time saying lights light enough, dark's dark enough. That is awesome. That's probably the best tip I can give anyone. Get your values in there. Your dark's dark enough, your light's light enough. So I'm going to use the Hooker's Green with the black again, but this time I'm going to use a little bit more, but actually I think I'm going to use about the same I did here and then add black on top to darken up areas. So I'm going to have to scrape this though because this is starting to dry. So I'm just going to take my handy little glass scraper, make some room for blending. Sorry if that sound is making you cringe. Oops, I should drag that through the white. That was impressive. So I'm just moving all of this out of the way because I am definitely needing some mixing room. Throwing things on the floor. That's probably where the paint or the pencil I lost earlier. Oh, there's the pencil I was looking for. Found my water-soluble pencil. Now that I don't need it. So again, we're going to go with the Hooker's Green, some black. We want it to be fairly chunky. I'm gonna add a little bit of water because that is starting to dry just from sitting out. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the ones here just because my brain is, actually, I take it back. I'm gonna start with the one over here. So these are going to come out about here. I'm just gonna mark loosely how far out I want them to come so that I don't go too crazy big or too small. Can I suggest another brand of canvas? I can't find Fredericks in Australia. I don't know what you've got there, so no, I'm really not sure. That I am sorry for. And then I will come back down and we'll go about like that. Okay, now I can go ahead and fill that in. I'm gonna leave a little bit of areas with the blue sky showing through. I don't want to cover it too much. Just some little dabs. I want to make sure I'm getting a little bit of texture in there, and I'm going to come back through and get the darker shadows after. So we'll leave that for now. Spritz with water, no noise. Yeah, I know. I don't know where that is right now. Oh, it's back there. I was just being lazy. Oh, we've got a greyhound on his back with his legs straight out in the air. They're such weird dogs. Hold on, I'll have to take this. Well, we'll post this. I don't know where I'm posting this photo, but that is just too funny not to take a photo. You guys saw this on Instagram with all the legs in the air earlier. Okay, so there's about that tree. Maybe I'll pull a few little areas out. Now I'm going to come over here. Easel Art Supply. That's what I was thinking of. If you're in the North Texas area, Easel Art Supply has Fredericks canvases that are always 50% off and a huge selection. Okay. So this one, I'm just going to kind of dot about where I want it to go, and it's going to curve back. We're going to come back down. There's another one back here, and these flatten out with the back. They go behind that hill. So I want to make sure that this lump isn't coming into my green there, or the light green. And it just gets smaller and disappears out there. And see, this is where you might be tempted to switch to a small brush and get all that little detail. Nope. Whatever detail you can get with your bigger brushes, that's how much detail. It forces you to paint loosely. So that's what we're doing here. We'll definitely have to add some darker areas on top of this once this sets a bit. But see how this flat? Make sure you leave that flat right there, so it looks like it's rolling behind the hill. Some more paint mixed up because my paint's getting a bit dry already. Andrea said, too funny, I can see Wade's hind leg. I think it's a hind leg behind you. He can't seem to relax at all. Yeah, he's definitely not the nervous basket case he was when he moved in. I was afraid it was going to take him a lot longer to settle in with us when we saw it. Like the first day he wasn't too bad. They warned me he was scared of his own shadow, you know, that he was very jumpy. But I'm like, it'll be fine. And the first day he wasn't that nervous. Day 2, oh my God, he was trying to get behind the barbecue, behind the smoker. He was trying to shove my plant pots, like heavy big pots. He was trying to shove them away so he could get between them and the wall. And he was terrified. We couldn't take him outside. He had to be on a leash the first few days outside because he was just panic running. So, but no, night and day difference with that dog. Really happy with how far he's come. But that first day, like that second day he was here, it's like, oh, did I make a mistake? I don't know if this was a good idea. I mean, I was going to work through it either way. I wanted to help him, but, you know, to calm down. But no, he came out of that shell really quick. I think Gibson really helped because Gibson is one of the, Gibson is really stable, like mentally very stable dog. Okay. Yeah, I think that is a hind leg you're seeing. So see how this kind of curved back around there? And now we're going, I'm gonna actually pull mine up a little bit more there and a little bit more here. A little bit more back here too. And then I'm gonna pull, this is going to stay pretty flat. So I can leave brush strokes. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, but I'm gonna line. This is going to go all the way across back here. And then we're gonna go just little teeny brush strokes. I know you're tempted to switch to a smaller brush, but this is what you want to force yourself in keeping it loose. You have no choice but for it to be loose because you're using a brush bigger than what you're comfortable with. We want to get variation. We don't want just a straight line. We want some of these little trees in the background to be a bit higher than others, then fade down to almost nothing. Okay, I've got to pull more green to where it fades. I kind of have blue sky where I don't really want it. So that works. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse that out and get the green. Let me see if I can make it so you guys can see him a bit better. Hold on. That is what is happening behind me right now. You can't mouth. I don't know if you can tell his mouth is like wide open as he lays that way. Greyhounds are so weird. Okay, back to work. Oh, lost my reference photo there. Okay, I'm gonna use, oh, I wanted to get that light green again for the background, so we'll mix some white in with that so that it's opaque enough to show. Get that in there. I also want to get a little bit more of that lighter tan. Me as well, I've got unbleached titanium white, I can use some of that. That'll give me a light tan without having to mix anything. Just get some of that a little bit more with the brush strokes in here, breaking that up. Now this is the part where it starts becoming really fun to me because you can really see where it's going and you're just going to keep fussing over things and layering, but only with the big brushes. So you might feel like, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to do too much. Well, it's a big brush. Either way, you're still keeping it loose. So that's the big thing. And if you have a layer where you're like, oh, I liked it better how it was before, so repaint it how it was before. Just keep layering. The more you layer with these, even if you have bad layers, the previous textures just look cool underneath it. So you're not really hurting anything. Okay, now I'm gonna switch, I'm gonna use the same brush. I'll switch to just straight black. I'm gonna focus a little bit more on the bottoms here. Just little teeny brush strokes back there. Now make sure some of the green shows through. We are not trying to make this solid black. We're trying to create variation. So you've got like some shadows poking through. A little bit, not too much back here. Maybe a little bit on the curve here, a little bit more over here. Okay, so that's really it for this section. Now, this is optional if you want to put some like little hints of flowers up front. I'm going to put it on there, and if I don't like it, I'm going to paint over it. Really easy fix. So I can use the same brush I'm using now. So really, we did this entire painting with 2 brushes. And I'm going to put some white. Let's see if I like white flowers. Maybe I'll put some lavender in there. I don't know. Just little hints. Little clusters of flowers, though. We don't want this to turn into polka dots. So the clusters will kind of form in these rows. That is not on the reference photo. I'm just inventing this. Sam said, I'm painting along with you, and my painting seems to be very loose painting of your loose painting. Oh dear. That's funny. Hey, good practice. We'll get you to loosen up your style. And the funny thing is, with loosening up your style, I don't think you have to paint loose styles. I think people have a tendency to get in this idea that looser is always higher. It's better for some reason. Not necessarily. It just depends on what you enjoy. I don't think one is better than the other. This is just a different way to paint. And I do think the looser style can look really, really pretty. So, but I don't want you to feel like you shouldn't be painting things with detail. This is just a good thing to learn. I think I'm going to do some lavendery colors in here too. Get smaller as I move back, just little tiny little, barely touching the canvas in the background so it fades out. Like it looks like it's far away back there. And I'll get some bigger brush strokes as I move forward here. Yeah, definitely going to throw some lavender on this. I'm liking this hint of sort of flowers. Put a few out here. Need a bit more paint on my brush there. And if you put these on here and you're like, I don't really like how it looks, paint the green right over it. You're not hurting anything. But see how they're in these little clumps and clusters, and they kind of go in more horizontal rows there. And if I put too many, I don't have to cover them all. I just take out the ones that I think there might be too many of. You're pretty free here. I'm gonna rinse that. Thanks, Andrea. Andrea says, I really love this, all your work, but there's something really attention-getting with this one. You know why? It's because we're focusing on our values. We are not depending on detail. So from a distance, this looks fairly realistic, but because of the values, this is a really good way to practice your values. I'm not depending on detail. There's no detail. I have to depend on light's light enough, dark's dark enough. It forces me to focus more on the color choices and the values, not the detail. So great practice, even if this isn't your style. But yeah, it grabs your attention because we did go so high contrast here. Now, if I had done the reference photo as it was, which again, that's over. If you want to see the reference photo, it's free. You don't have to be a member at Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/Lachri. This is posted over there. The two references that I did, well, the original reference, and then the one that I edited in Photoshop to get to look more like what I was going to go with here. But if you look at those, look at the difference in how much I hyped up that contrast. And I think that's what really drew me in anyway. Where's my lavender? It's not even listed as lavender. It's listed as brilliant purple. I don't know. It looks kind of fluorescent to me. It's essentially dioxazine purple with white in it. So it's definitely more, it's lighter than I thought it was when I looked at the color swatch. So I think I want just this hint of, ooh, I like it. Little purple. I'm going to leave some of the white showing through. I'm not trying to cover all of the white. We can have a few like individuals out by themselves. Another thing you can do that really helps you to focus on your values and understand, like with just lighting and contrast and all of that, work on tiny little thumbnails. Like make yourself paint a landscape this big, little teeny, 2 inches wide max. Make yourself work on those little things. There's no room for detail. You have to focus on your values. And I think you can learn so much from doing that. There we go. That is it for this one. I mean, you can fuss over it if you wanted to a little bit more, but it really doesn't need it. Very, very simple. These paintings, by the way, when you paint this, when you paint this style, it will always look better from a distance than it looks up close. So when you're sitting here painting, and especially if you're going a little bit bigger, when you're sitting here painting, make sure to get up and back away from it and look at it. So one of the things I'm doing that lets me kind of cheat on that, I'm just looking at the screen to see what it looks like there on small form. So I'm able to tell, okay, are my darks dark enough? My lights light, is this looking how I want? When I sit up front, it does not look as good as what it looks like for you guys on a small, well, some of you guys use TVs, so you guys are seeing more what I'm seeing, the big, it looks better at a distance is the point there. And when I sign this, I would either sign here or here. So in this case, I've got this big open spot. I would sign there. Tip for you. I showed you this recently, but if you struggle with signing your name, now this is the one area you can switch to your liner brush. If you struggle with signing your name, get yourself one of these white charcoal pencils. It's by Generals, and I can write my name just like I would with a normal pencil. So I'm just going to sign that. Let's actually do it up here so you can see, but, I can't sign it normal on this. This is a weird angle, but I can go ahead and sign it with this. And if I wrote it out, it didn't come out right, no big deal. I can erase it. It's white charcoal. And then you can take your liner brush, which I don't know if I have any out, oh, I do, and use your liner brush to sign it. So I'm just going to use white on there. Yeah, let's get some lavender in there too. But now you're going to just trace over that. So it's like make a little brush stroke, lift the brush, make another brush stroke, lift the brush. Because as you know, with a brush stroke, you can't just write with it like you would a pen or a pencil because it's going to bend and move and make a hot mess. So instead, I can just trace over those pencil lines, and that pencil I was able to write, and that makes it really look just like my signature. Now, honestly, you will get to the point where you don't need that as a guideline. It's easy enough. You'll learn to sign your name with this. But in the beginning, you sign it first with that charcoal pencil and then just trace over it. And then once this dries, here's a big tip though. If you do this, you're going to be tempted to erase the charcoal pencil right away. Nope, let it dry for like an hour or two. A lot longer than you think. When you think it's dry, let it dry longer because it's really, I have smudged my signature so many times over the years thinking it was dry and trying to erase my charcoal lines, and it was not. So I'll just let that set. I wouldn't bother erasing until tomorrow, but that is it on that. Now with the Liquitex Basics, if you're using the same as me, these dry very flat. You're not going to have a super rich, bold color like when the paint goes on wet. So what you do instead, let it, once it dries, put a gloss varnish over it. It'll look like wet paint again. I mentioned highlights on the clouds. I already got those. I went through, those are as much of the highlights as I want, but if you wanted more highlights on your clouds, just use white paint, put a few more brush strokes. Mine don't need any more highlights than what I have. I don't want to pull them out too much, but I did the highlights back when we were painting through this. I came back through with some white earlier. Let's see. Sam said, I'm painting on a 4x5" piece of mixed media paper. Oh, you're working pretty small too, so that's a good size to do something like this. Gypsy Heart said, what are your views on moving forward and challenging? Do you believe one can have something to be out of their skill level, or is nothing out of anyone's skill level? Just keep going at it. I think it depends on your attitude, honestly. I've seen artists that like they can't admit or they can't see that their work is not as good as they think it is. Those artists typically aren't going to move as far as somebody who's constantly striving, who is aware that they can do better. Now that same artist can change their mind. I know I did. There was a time where I was like, this is just as good as I can get. And I accepted that until somebody showed me I could do better. And now I'm like, I don't ever want to hit a point where I think this is as good as it gets. I want to constantly try new things and constantly improve on that. But I find with students, it was their attitude that made the difference, not like some inherent magic fairy dust that was sprinkled over them, that they were born with some amazing gift. It was a desire and interest and the ability to just pay attention and like notice things, to teach yourself to notice the details, to notice the contrast, to notice the details, to notice the lines, all of that. I don't think that anyone's limited on what they can do. It has to do with attitude. I can't tell you how many students, and it was usually teenagers, and teenagers can come in with attitudes anyway, but teenagers would come in with this thing of, I can't draw realistic, I like abstract, or I like anime. And it's like, well, you're not going to draw anime in my class. I'm going to actually teach you more, but I'd have where their mom or their parent would recognize that the kid had some skill in drawing, and so they'd bring them to the class, and they'd come in with this, well, I don't like to draw realistic. Okay, do you not like to draw? And this was always my question. Do you not like to draw realistic because you don't like how it looks? Or do you not like to draw it because you don't know how to do it and you can't make it look realistic? Almost every time it was the latter. It was always because I'm not good at it. Okay, well, let me help you be good at it. And they could be good at it, but they had to change their outlook. They had to move. And of course, I'm using teenagers as examples, and we all know teenagers think they know everything. I'm sorry for teenagers who are watching. Obviously, you know everything. But once you can get them to realize, to get out of their own way, they can do anything. You can do anything. It comes to practice. It comes to patience. It comes to paying attention to details. Noticing that something should be darker or lighter, and that is kind of having an awareness that you need to be looking for that. You're trying to notice more. When I first started painting pet portraits, I would look at artists who were I wanted mine to look like theirs so bad, and it was like, well, why doesn't mine look like that? What's the difference? And I started noticing more details, and it took time. It's not an overnight thing. I knew I needed more details. I knew I needed to notice more. But it doesn't come without tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of practice. I can't say tons enough in that. Let's see. Thanks, Suzanne. Let's see. Danielle said, yay, I got you live. How are you? I'm good. We're pretty much done. So we're just going to chat for the night. If you were here just for the painting is done. This is once it dries all the way, it needs a varnish over it. I can paint the edges if I want to, but I kind of like the white edges on this. I don't know if I'm going to continue that one around or not. But the painting itself is done. So we're just chatting now. If you have questions, being that we finally have a good internet connection. My Wi-Fi died, if you were unaware. So yet internet still is good. We're going to have AT&T work on that. But anyway, Sam said, patience is key, I find, which I'm glad I have a lot of. Patience is on your side if you have it. Absolutely. I think one of the things where I've seen like newer students, or even students who've only been painting for a year or so, that were really challenged by was they wanted to be as good instantly as the artist who's been doing this for 10 years. They want, like, if I can't be good that instantly, obviously I'm not ever going to be able to do it. And it's like, well, no, that's not how that works. It comes from dedication and practice and time. I mean, it's like anything else. If you want to be good at it, it's not going to happen overnight. And there's some weird thing about art, and I don't know why people have this in their head, that some people are just born with it. No. Some people are born, I think the difference there is people are born with an affinity, not even an affinity, an attraction to art or an interest in art. They just like doing it, and so they spend more time. The artists who can draw well have spent most of their life doodling. They have spent most of their life, if they have free time, they've got a pencil in their hand and they're sitting there sketching while they watch TV, or sketching while somebody's talking, sketching while they're eating dinner. The artists who got really, really good, it was not something they were born with. That's not how that works. They picked up a pencil and they started drawing a lot. And the more they drew, the better they got. But the thing is, that's something that's like done quietly in private, and people don't realize how much practice and how much time and how much work it took for these phenomenal artists to get to that point. It was not overnight. That's not how any of that works. Sam said, do you do much in the way of water painting? No, watercolor, I don't. I want to get a set of pan watercolors, because I actually, now that I've been using my watercolor pencils, I really do like them. So I would like to get some pans of those. I do Inktense, and that's similar in some ways to watercolor, not always. Inktense doesn't lift like watercolor does, so there's a big difference there. But I mean, you are thinning it quite a bit with water to get that look. Gypsy Heart said, thanks for the encouragement. I always show my hubby things I want, but I say I can't do it yet. He's always saying that you never know till you try. So I amaze myself sometimes. Yeah, he's right. You just have to try. And I think too, a lot of people try once, try twice, try 3 times, paint or draw for 2 weeks or 2 months, and like, man, I can't do this. I'm out. Yeah, those who are good have been doing it for a very long time. It's kind of like when we go into pricing. People are like, wow, they try to figure out how much time did you spend? So if I painted this without you guys, I'd have it done in maybe, 45 minutes. Well, let's go on the high end. Let's say it took me an hour. If I sold it, I'd probably sell it for, $150, $200. 200 if it included shipping. If somebody knows, you guys know how long it took. So if they're like, wow, you made that much money in an hour, you're not paying for an hour of my time. You're paying from the time I was a child learning to draw. You're paying for a lifetime of experience and getting to this point. You're not paying for an hour of my time. And that's where I think a lot of people don't understand too. So much time goes into getting to the stage where you can paint. So, and understanding it, it's not an overnight thing. Let's see. Did you already block the person? Just block the person completely if you can. I think you guys are able to block the person spamming. Or maybe I can. Hold on. You guys aren't seeing it, but let me see if I can. No, put them in. I can't even block them from here. Oh, I'm going to have to go to their channel. I'll have to deal with them later. I don't know why spammers think that will work. They come into groups and like, it's hidden. No one's seeing your post. You're wasting your time and annoying me. Let's see. Oops. Oh, I can't scroll up now. There we go. Did it unfreeze? There we go. Now I can scroll up. Let's see. Where were we? And just a reminder, if you have a question, make sure you're doing the Lachri fine art. If it does not highlight in orange, I won't see your question. If you can't get it to highlight in orange, I'm not judging you. I can't get it to work either. Ask somebody else who knows how to do it and they'll post your question for you. Let's see. Where were we here? Danielle said, oh, I missed it. OMG, so many people have been having internet problems. We had a mini blackout here in Baltimore earlier. Ouch. Yeah, my internet problems were just my Wi-Fi isn't working like it keeps dropping. It'll work and then it drops and it works and it drops. I'm plugged into the wall now and I'm not having any problems, but it's not the computer, it's all the Wi-Fi in the house is just not working right. I've been having issues for a while with it. Now, at least we pinpointed where the problem was. Sam, oh, okay, got that. Lee said, thank you. You have helped me so much in all areas, mediums, you're an inspiration. Thank you. Sam said, you will enjoy watercolor, I think, at least as something different when you want to have a change once in a while. Yeah, and it's funny, I started with watercolor years ago. I had used some, but it was like probably like a Crayola pan, so nothing good. But I couldn't control it. I understood, like, acrylics made sense to me, watercolor didn't. But now that I use Inktense so much, watercolor makes sense to me, and with the watercolor pencils makes sense. Now I'm very, very interested in painting with it, but I was so determined, like, I can't do this, it doesn't work for me. Talk about getting in your own way and having a mindset that, you know, the bad attitude. But yeah, now I definitely want to get some. Izzy said, I was wondering, how would you say is the best way to go about to grow your social influence? Post more and use proper hashtags and learn different things. Because like the way I'm going to word stuff and the way what I'm going to post on Facebook is not going to be effective on Instagram. They're different platforms. So you have to see what works best on which. So like Instagram, your hashtags really make a big difference. And is the content you're posting something that interests somebody? That's very important too. YouTube was for me how I grew mine. I grew on YouTube. I didn't have a huge following. I would say I was under 1,000 Facebook followers, and I've been on Facebook for a few years. I was under 1,000 or so on Facebook until YouTube, and then YouTube is what grew Facebook and Instagram and everything else. So for me, YouTube was the easiest way to get my stuff out there. But I mean, I teach painting, so that just was a good fit for me. But doing painting videos, YouTube, I think it's easier to be discovered by people on YouTube, for people to search you and to get to know you. Like I can sit here chatting with you guys, so I get to know you guys, which is easier to do in a video than I think it is on Facebook or Instagram. Now, Facebook and Instagram, I'm hearing doing Facebook Live or Instagram videos is a really good way to grow too. I have not experimented with that much myself. I do need to do some Facebook Lives. I want to see how that works out, but I have not done that yet. Oh, I guess I'll be doing it with Derwin next week. So, but that's supposed to be good too. So videos, I think, is one of the best things you can do for getting that growing. Izzy said oh no, we got that one. Jason said 1 million hours of work. Yes, pretty much. JT, where were you? JT said, I noticed you added the year to your signature. Is that common for you to do? And did you do the year in most of your art? I've always added the year in mine. I contemplated not adding it anymore, and I didn't really think too much about it until this Christmas, when I have a family member who I am not a fan of at all, but I'm still obligated to give them a gift, and they always want a painting. So I give her stuff that like I painted really quickly, that like I'm not caring if I'm going to try to sell it. She doesn't know that, but don't worry, there's no way she's watching this. But anyway, with her, I was pulling out like some of my old paintings just to have something to give to her. And I was like, crap, you can see this was painted 7 years ago. And I know this person's going to be like, oh, you're just giving me your throwaway paintings, which was true. But I was like, it might be better if my signature, or if my signature did not include the date, because I think it gives the impression when it's an older date, like, wow, no one wanted to buy this painting. Not necessarily, they don't really think of, well, I wasn't trying to sell that painting before. So they just see that date and may associate that with something that you were not able to sell, so maybe it wasn't as high of value. And that there is a theory now, and I've heard that after I started thinking about that, someone was posting, was it our art group? Someone was posting about that. And are you squeaking your toy? That it can give the impression that, like I said, that nobody bought it. So I don't know if I'm going to keep up with the signature or not. It's something I've been contemplating, but right now I am, because I don't know, we're at a period of history that none of us have lived through before. 2020 is something we are forever going to remember. And, you know, the paintings and quarantine and stuff. So I kind of want, like, right now I decided to go ahead and include everything for this year with the date. I don't know if that's something I will continue after, because I was already thinking I was going to stop including the date. Like I said, what I was thinking when I gave that gift to the family member that I'm not a fan of. So that sounds so mean. She's kind of a horrible person. But anyway, that's what got me going on. I'm not going to include it, but right now we're in such a unique time in history that I just kind of wanted to date what I accomplished during being stuck in the house. So I don't know if it's a good choice or not. It's just what I decided to do. Let's see. Sam said quarantine him. I think everyone's already quarantined. I don't think he cares. So Dawn has said, did you use 3 colors on the road? I might have missed the 3rd color. I used white and black to get that grayish tone, and some of my raw sienna, and a little bit of raw, my brain shut down again, raw sienna and burnt sienna. So burnt sienna, sorry, raw sienna. My brain flips those. But I used a little bit of both of those with the white and the black. Then I came through with the shadows with just the burnt sienna and black with a little bit of water to thin it down. So I'm letting some of that background lighter color show through. Then after that all dried, I came back through with a little bit of unbleached titanium white for the road. And technically the unbleached titanium white is almost the exact same color as what I mixed with white, gray, or white, black, and the other 2 colors. So I could have simplified it and just done unbleached titanium white, but I don't think that far ahead. There are like a million different ways to get to the same end when it comes to art. Let's see. Gypsy Heart said, I found a good quote on my wall that helps me and might help some other beginners who worry about going for it. Paint is only wasted when it stays in the tube. That is a very good quote. Yeah, a lot of new artists are just so afraid to waste their paint that they don't use it. Sarah said, I missed part of your live stream a couple of weeks ago because my internet went out. Internet drama. Andrea said, my internet wasn't working and I went so far to call the people to fix it. Come out to find out my dog unplugged it. I felt pretty lame. That is amazing. That is too funny. I'm listening to my husband when he has to do tech support for people, and he's just like headbanging the thing. He goes, I guarantee you she turned it off. Like she unplugged the thing, like the headset isn't working because it's not charged, or she turned it off. But yeah, it's so funny. Some of the simple things where you're like, wow, I can't believe I didn't notice that. Dan said, I tried following along with gouache and half a sheet of watercolor paper. It started to look good and devolved after the sky was done. Lee said, Lisa, I noticed that you use a gray palette on glass. Did you make that yourself? No, this one, I think it's linked in the video description. This one is a New Wave glass palette, and I have it inside of, this is the color you'll see. It's the Master Sun. It's a, like Tupperware for the palette, and it fits perfectly in this, but it seals off the paint. And what I typically do with acrylics, I use this for oils too, but with acrylics, I'll take a paper towel. Let's take one here, because I need to do this anyway. I just fold a paper towel up and get a little bit of water on that so it's kind of damp. not too much. And I will let this damp paper towel sit in the palette with the lid on. All these clumps of paint will be wet. Like I could open this a month later and most of this is still gonna be wet. Right now it's starting to dry out because I'm leaving the lid's been off for so long, but I can reuse this paint over and over and over again. The only paint that will dry still is the stuff that I've mixed, these thin spots, but the thick spots of paint, those are gonna stay wet, so pretty handy. Jenny said, thank you for your time and knowledge. I've tried so many things due to watching your videos and streams. Thank you, and thanks to Nick and Joseph Fincham for moderating. Yes, and check out Nick and Joseph's I Can't Talk channel. They both have channels here on YouTube. They are linked in the video description. Great art channels, and thank them because they help so much. I would not be doing this without them. And those poor guys, they were here Wednesday night. Then my attempt this morning, so an extra random video. I didn't even tell them I was live streaming, and they were here for it. And then tonight, like they are amazing. Let's see, Gail said, I was just bummed I missed this today and now found it. We moved our son and I've been weepy all day. Aw, I watched this for therapy. He's a registered nurse in Birmingham, the worst city in Alabama. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm glad you found the art though. More painting. Jason said, how do you access your live stream on Facebook? I am in your group. Live stream on well, the one for Derwent is the one I'm going to try. I haven't tried live streaming on Facebook yet, but the one that I'm going to be doing with them will be through the Art of Wellness group. So just type in the Art of Wellness. It's a group that is run by Derwent, and so that'll be that one. But as far as like actually, I can't give you any live streaming tips on Facebook. I've never done it yet, so I'll get back to you on how that goes. Danielle said, how do you balance art life with your private life, like setting up boundaries for your followers and other artists? I've been meeting a lot of predatory people. Yeah, I won't post anything online that I don't care if anybody sees. So I'm very careful about what I post, like not showing any like what the words I'm looking for, anything that would make it easy for somebody to tell where I live type things, like never in the front of my house. That sort of thing. I just try to keep that out. It's going to happen. I mean, fortunately, because most of the people I meet through being on YouTube and being on social media have been amazing. I have not met very many people who are like creeping me out. It happens, but like percentage wise, it always seems like there's more creeps than there are because they freak you out. But like if I actually went through the percentages, almost everybody is amazing. There are very few people that have been questionable, but I just try to be careful about what I post because I leave, like even my private Facebook is not even private. It's all like everyone can see everything, but I don't post anything that I wouldn't want public is kind of my personal role there. But yeah, I don't have a personal social anything online. I used to have on my website like my phone number and all that, so it was easy for people to get a hold of me. But that one kind of creeped me out when I first started. Maybe not first started with YouTube. I'm not sure how long I was on there, but I had my phone number on my website because students had to be able to call to let me know if they were coming to class that day. So just the way that those classes were set up, and that was always so they could easily find the number. They had no excuse not to tell me they were or weren't going to be there. So I had somebody who had watched me on YouTube called, and I answered it just thinking it was a student. It was not, and it was a very awkward, kind of creepy conversation of how do I get this person off the phone? I didn't want to be rude, but it was like, this is weird that you're just calling me to chat. Like, this is very weird. Finally get her off the phone. She called several times that night again to chat, and it was like, I'm not answering that. No. So that was weird. My phone number is no longer on my website. I don't answer the phone anymore anyway, unless it's my mom. Let's see. Dawn said, thanks, I missed the unbleached white highlight. Yeah, and you can mix it. I mean, it's almost the same color that I mixed with black, white, and the brownish tones. So, are you trying to get out? Are you done? I think Wade is done for the night. Just answer the last couple questions, and let's see. Danielle said, I'm trying to work on being less accessible. Yeah, that's going to come, I think, naturally, just from when you accidentally answer a phone call and talk to some random person from states away that saw your videos, and now it's like, I don't know how to get you off the phone without just hanging up on you. That one was pretty weird. I forgot about that until just talking now. That was years and years ago. Jason said, I was here and boy, it was off with the Wi-Fi. Oh God, that was the Wi-Fi today. I was so frustrated and flustered because it's like when you're trying to get something done and I'm trying to work and I'm trying to yeah, flustered is an understatement. Okay, so we are now at 10:03 and somebody is bored. Get out of there. Let's not go through my art supplies. Come here. Come here, cow dog. But yeah, thank you so much for joining and putting up with the whole earlier problems. And I know for sure we'll be live streaming on Wednesday. I don't know what extras, I don't think I'll have any extra live streams next week just because I'm already doing the one for Derwent. But then the following week, I'm going to try to do some extras being, you know, that we're all stuck inside anyway. So hopefully I'll look at others of the looser style like this because this is just fun and it's an easy way to get a complete painting and it's good practice anyway. So I will see you guys next week. Thanks again so much for joining and to Nick and Joseph for moderating and being here for all of my drama Wi-Fi. I'll see you guys later.